Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Gentle Power. Recently, we've had a lot of guests, but we thought we were overdue for an episode with just the two of us.
Yes, you insisted on that. I'm excited.
Okay. Okay, you insisted on that. Moving on. I think it's good. We gotta switch it up. If those who are watching on video, we've also switched our seats too. You just gotta mix it up here.
And our background.
Our background, you'll notice that the items on the bookshelf continues to change and rearrange. We're just trying to find the right feng shui.
And I hope we don't get judged by our books, but
I chose the safe ones. You should not. Oh, I think I know what you're.
Not judge us by our book covers.
Yeah, the saying goes something like that. Don't judge us by these book covers. Yes. All right, off to a great start.
I'm not gonna edit this out.
Yeah, let's just keep it all in.
We have an amazing backlog of good guests. We've already recorded some super cool interviews. I'm very excited to post those. The holdup has been that we are looking for a new video editor, so we're trying out different people.
Anyone listening out there, if you know really good video editors, shoot me an email, alex@yournegotiations.com.
Your Negotiations, plural. alex@yournegotiations.com. Funny story, I texted our friend Targel, who is an incredible creator, and I was like, do you know any video editors that you recommend? And then she sends me a list of apps, and I'm like, oh, I meant human editor. And then she's like, I edit all my videos myself. I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, should we hire Targel? She's really good. Her videos, targel.tv.
Yeah.
Shout out.
I don't know if that's her handle. I don't know if it's an actual website though. I'll be curious.
I think that's her handle.
I wonder if that's her website.
We should go to that to see if there's been if she's had a website this entire time and we just did not know.
Like a whole other persona that we've never seen. I wouldn't be surprised because she switches up her personas every time. So nothing can surprise me anymore.
Yeah. She's awesome. Maybe we'll have her on the pod sometime.
We should. Yeah. Unless she's like, I don't know what would be left field for someone who's
yeah, but for those who don't know her, she's the 4th funniest Mongolian stand-up comedian in San Francisco. That's her Instagram bio.
Yeah. Cool. Let's get to it.
Okay.
So episode is titled Every Negotiation is Different. I want to tie this to a main message, which is that negotiations are a science and an art. Mm-hmm. And people have asked us, for example, like you have a course. We used to have a course. Do you have, we might bring the courses back, but like, do you have a course? Do you have you trained an AI on your content and things like that? We have considered that, but the thing is that negotiations, there's such a big art component. And when I say that, I mean, there's a lot of judgment calls you need to make, and there's a lot of creativity on the spot as how to maneuver around things that I don't think I can literally sort of download my brain onto something else.
Yeah. And we've had cases before when we used to have a course a year or two ago. People would take what we teach in the course. There were also even live components to it too, where we would have them on Zoom calls. And then they would go off and do what we teach. But there's so much nuance in even just a few words in what you communicate or the demeanor in which you communicate it, reading how the other side responds, all these things. And we've had cases where someone came back and said, I tried what you did and it didn't work. But they explained to us exactly what went down. And there were all these little things we probably would have adjusted because their situation is very unique. Yeah. So I just wanted to double click on that point.
Yeah. One of my biggest things I'm most proud of us for is that we have a lot of repeat clients, which means they were very happy working with us before. But it also means that it's hard to sort of take what we teach and just apply it everywhere. I genuinely, and I was going to make this our finishing thought, but I'd rather say it up front, which is I would love for us to productize what we teach and coach, because that would be so much easier to sell. What we do right now, our main offering is unlimited time with us for as long as it takes until the client signs a job offer that they like. And that's a lot of time and effort on our part. I would have loved to, if I could just put my brain. We can scale so much more easily. I'm actually an introvert. I wouldn't have to be on so many calls.
Not to say that Gerta does not like talking to her clients.
I really enjoy talking to our clients. Yeah. I actually really enjoy the creativity of it.
Yeah.
And so that piece I would miss if we were to somehow create a digital second brain of ours.
Yeah, and for clarity too, when Gerta says unlimited support, that's we essentially with every client, we create a private chat thread with just the three of us. They ping us anytime, day and night, weekends. We send back voice
Holidays.
memos. We answer all their questions on the spot. We hop on calls and help them with practicing their upcoming call with the recruiter on how to handle and
Yeah.
tactfully push back, all these things. So
Yeah.
it truly is unlimited support. We're fully with you.
So we talked about that negotiations is a science and an art. There's a lot of judgment call to make. So here's an example. There's a logical reason why we tell people to never share their preferred number. And a lot of companies are very persistent on getting you to share a preferred number. Very quick background on that is that in many major states in the US, for the last few years, it's been illegal for companies to ask you what your salary history is. And for that reason, now companies have found a workaround, which is to ask you what your preferred salary is. So it's still a data point that shows what you're thinking and sort of kind of anchored often in your salary history. And that's why they're so persistent. And we say, do not give a number because every open seat, every role, every open seat has a maximum budget, whether that's been explicitly stated within the team or implicitly. I mean, there is a point at which it's unreasonable for them to pay that much for this role. And the implicit one is mostly early stage startups where they haven't really formulated their compensation philosophy yet. And so we say, do not give a number because it could fall below the top of the budget and they might give it to you. Best case scenario, they say yes, but now you left money on the table. Or your number could be above the top of their budget and you might turn them off. They might rescind the offer. They might not put you through the more formal written offer if you're not there yet. Or, and this is the more insidious one, they might think you will not be happy there. And this one you can't argue with because if you've given such a high number, they might not be angry or anything like that. They're like, you're not going to be happy here if it's such a big gap. And so that's why logically you don't give a number. But there are exceptions. The one I'm thinking about is it's a very edge case. Basically, what it is let's say I'm going to give actual company names as an example, because I don't like when people say, oh, company A and company B, and then they go down A and B, and then in my head, I'm like, which one was A? So let's say you have an offer from, again, these are not real, but let's say you have an offer from Meta, and you're also interviewing with Google. So you are negotiating with Meta. You're very excited to go there. At the same time, you're interviewing with Google and other companies. So at some point, Meta says, you're negotiating, you got the offer, you're negotiating, and then Meta says, this is our best and final offer. We told you not to give a number. I outlined the logic behind it. But this number is still not making sense for you. Maybe it's less than what you currently make, or it's just the math doesn't make sense for you. It's not an offer that you want to take yet, but you do love the opportunity. So let's assume that you have an offer from Google that it's better, but you still want the Meta job. You prefer the Meta job. So here's the edge case where you can share a specific number. Meta has said this is our best and final. You have a better offer, but you would rather take Meta. It makes sense at this point for you to share a number because otherwise, what are we doing here? So this is an example where, and it's very edge case, right? You want this other company, but then you have a better offer from another company, but this company said there's no more room in their budget. Then that's when you say you share a number.
Even within that edge case, there could be exceptions, right? For example, let's say at the point at which this conversation is taking place and whether you should share that number or not, it depends perhaps if the recruiter has already asked you 10, 15 times in the back and forth over the last few weeks of negotiations for you to share a number. And at that point, maybe you've expended so much of your negotiation capital, it's not worth trying to make one more push to deflect, right? There's still there are all these nuances even within the edge cases themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, another nuance is maybe you are making even more at your current company than what Google is offered you. And so maybe you share that number, although it's tricky because your current salary at your current job is very transparent. Wherever you are, that's public information. It's on your LinkedIn, it was on your resume, even if it's not on LinkedIn. And so they know, these companies, they have market data, they pay for a very expensive, employer reported, statistically significant market data. They can deduce with a lot of confidence how much you're making where you're at. And so first, they already knew probably, so it's not new leverage. And two, the fact that you are interviewing and you went through all the trouble of interviewing, getting an offer, preparing for interviews, sometimes taking, home assignments and all that, that means you are poachable.
No one does it for fun.
Yeah.
Like I just
Although
want to
you
keep
should.
I mean, you should.
We recommend.
Yeah, yeah, but it's not really the case where you have zero intention of taking a job and I'm just going to apply to a bunch of companies. Although that reminds me of one of my friend's brothers who's brilliant. He is a doctor. And so he took the MCATs, but at the time when he was taking the MCATs, he was just curious about what the whole standardized testing space, and then he also took the GMAT and the LSAT all within the same
time?
year.
Okay.
Yeah, he did well on all three.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did take the GMAT because you were taking it, and I was like,
And then you crushed it.
I did crush it.
Yeah.
I was like, there's so much math in this, and language, like the English part was very sort of linguistic. So I did kind of take it for fun.
Yeah. I guess that makes one person in the world who found the GMAT fun.
That's funny. Okay, cool. So the not giving a number thing we talked about. Then we have company cultures. That's another aspect that is where the art piece comes in and sort of the judgment call and then incorporating all these variables. So for example, this is probably common knowledge, but Netflix and Amazon have very sharp cultures, very like no BS, go straight to the point, direct.
Yeah, we are the
low
special
fluff.
forces of the corporate world. Yeah.
And then you have Meta and Google who are, softer, kinder, gentler.
And these are generalizations, by the way,
Of
but
course. Yeah.
there is still some truth to this because when you talk to people who have worked at these companies, you get this general sense of what the culture is there is like.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, there's people, they have people going and working at each other's companies, and including recruiters. So of course, some of the cultures permeate each other. But speaking of Meta having a gentler culture, I remember when you were an intern there and I visited you in South Bay, and you could see Mark Zuckerberg's office. Like it was in the middle of the floor plan.
One of the main buildings. Yeah.
One of the main buildings. And of course, me being a little mischievous, I took a selfie, with his office in the background, even though I know you weren't supposed to. I knew that.
Tis, tis, tis.
And then the guard came, and like if this were Albania, I would have been thrown out. But they were so kind about it. They're like, ma'am, it's not allowed to take photos.
Yeah.
Do you mind deleting it? It was just so gentle.
They have, if I remember correctly, plainclothes security guards all around near where his office is. They're always watching, and
you can't even tell they're a security guard?
no, they're kind of dressed like the employees, I think, because there are also other security who are in uniform all throughout the campus. The thing, this is just a quick aside, but the one thing about working at Meta is that the security and the facilities people there, I think they go through some special training because they're all so freaking nice.
Or maybe they choose them that way. They choose the nice people.
Yeah, but I think, regardless, it was consistent. It was almost robotic in a little dystopian way, but it was a very pleasant experience where they're just incredibly friendly. Even the security people, even the security person who came up to you and asked you to delete the photo that you just took, he was like, ma'am, I'm so sorry to ask, but can you please delete that photo and all these things?
But he did not have me deleted from my deleted folders.
All right, maybe they need to do some retraining there.
This is a long time ago.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, this is all alleged. In case Meta comes at us.
Trying to get anyone fired. A long
this is
time
many
ago.
years ago.
But I was also thinking, I remember thinking, wow, they're so nice back then. But then I remember thinking, like, of course, I would be nice too. This is amazing. Like, the office was beautiful, incredible. The food was unreal. I'm like, I would be so happy here. Like, it's probably the best job a security person can ever have.
It is the corporate offices, any Meta office around the world is incredible.
We were both just blown away because we were coming from the East Coast jobs. You were coming from the military, like very beige offices. And then I was coming from IBM in Boston, which was like, similarly, almost like the office.
Yeah.
That same vibe.
Cubicle land.
And it was already one of the best offices in Boston anyway. Yeah. But the cubicle land. Yeah, exactly.
The other thing, and I know we've gotten really off track, but I think this is kind of interesting. The other thing that made me believe that they get a specific very rigorous training to be very friendly is that level of service was very consistent across all the Meta offices, no matter what city, what country that you go to. They're all it's very, very consistent. They're all super friendly. They're really, really nice. They're very accommodating. Yeah.
That's so interesting. I'm like, if they don't train them that way, which I'm sure they do, it just makes sense. What if they just pick some sort of specific MBTI, like ESFJ? We only hire the kindest people.
Yeah, you go through a very rigorous psychological evaluation if you can work in security and facilities. Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly. And cool. So
what were we talking about?
We were talking about company culture, and going back to that point is you negotiate very differently with a Netflix and Amazon versus a Meta and a Google. I'm trying to think if we can come up with any examples on the spot, but again, Netflix and Amazon, they're very low BS, low frills, direct. And so you can say something like, I imagine if they're insisting on, give us a number, what's your preferred salary? Then you can say something like, I don't have one. Like, I genuinely don't have one. Something like that. Versus with Meta and Google, maybe you can just be like, oh, let me check. Similar to coming from different cultures, from different countries. Like, I know my brothers live in Amsterdam. The Dutch culture is so direct versus having been married to a Korean for 14 years. I know how, you never say no. You say, I'm okay. Or like, let me think about it.
Yeah, no is a very, very strong, almost rude response.
I remember I don't know what the scenario was. Maybe it was a waitress or something, but she was American. And I said something, she's like, do you want, I don't know, more water? And I said, I'm okay. And then she brought more and I'm like, oh, it's okay. I'm okay. And then I think she said something like, yeah, I'm okay means you want more.
But it's like, okay.
Right,
wait, where was this? In Europe?
I really forget. No, it was American. Someone American. And I was like, oh, I borrowed that from Alex. You say I'm okay instead of saying no.
Yeah.
It's a very soft, gentle way of saying no, which I've learned a lot from you on that. So we talked about company culture, which also shows how not every negotiation is the same. Another thing to think about is that there's so many factors that go into it. I guess this is the umbrella takeaway. So we said there's all these edge cases, there's the company culture, there's things like what have they said and done so far. Sometimes a company will indirectly or gently threaten you by saying things like, so what do you think about this offer? We have other candidates waiting in the pipeline. We actually really like one of them. And the reality is that in this day and age, it's almost guaranteed that they have other candidates.
Yeah.
Anyone can apply to jobs online, especially with big companies, but also small companies. I read that as a threat because it's already a given that they will have other candidates. Another thing is who has referred you, if you were referred or not, and who referred you. So in big companies like Meta and Google, I think weren't you one of the top people who referred people?
Yeah. They make at the time, they made the referral process very easy. And I had lots of people in my network applying because just through business school and all this stuff. And I think the last year I worked there, I received an email from my manager and said, Alex, you were identified as one of the top referrers at all of Meta across the world.
Wait, really?
Yeah, you submitted amongst the most referrals than any other employee.
Did you get referral bonuses?
I think
think
two
you
or
did.
three got hired. Yeah, I got
Okay,
referral
okay,
bonuses,
nice.
but post tax, it just doesn't feel.
Yeah.
You know, it's you're just like, okay, this feels like pennies, but
Yeah.
you know, it's still pretty nice. But at large, so your point being, at large companies like Meta, Google, and we talk about tech a lot, but
Yeah.
this can be across the board. The referral process is sometimes so streamlined
Yeah.
that it doesn't really hurt to ask someone
Yeah, you definitely
because
want to be referred. Did you have to, do you remember if you had to have worked with them or anything like that, or just
if you
know them?
did, if you did, then you
A
could put in
different.
additional
Oh,
context.
okay.
But sometimes there
They
were
just refer you a friend.
people. It was a friend of a friend of a friend who was a great fit for a role, and they somehow got to me, and I said, "Yeah, happy to submit this. It would
Yeah.
take me 5 minutes."
Yeah. So definitely get referred. However, it does matter if you were referred by a friend of a friend of a friend, or if you were referred by the hiring manager or the VP. So now the negotiation is very different. If you weren't referred at all, they might ghost you anytime. Like, people are being ghosted by companies left and right nowadays. If you were referred by someone, at least you have some level of confidence that they will not ghost you. They will take you a little bit more seriously. And then if you're referred by leadership, like the hiring manager, the VP, the whatever, see something, then they will definitely take you a lot more seriously. So that is another variable in and of itself. If you were referred and whom you were referred by, that we factor into how you negotiate.
And if you were referred for a big company like Meta, Amazon, Google, or you were referred at a startup, referrals at startups or smaller companies definitely
Yeah,
tend to
that's a
go
great
a
point.
much longer way.
Yeah, exactly, because it's so much smaller. And so, yeah, when I was advising for a startup a couple years ago, it was very small, maybe 10 people. So if like, everyone's working closely with each other. So if someone can vouch for another person to be hired, that goes a long way. It's not just, I guess, a voice in like thousands of people at Meta. This is one of 10 people referring someone. Cool. Any final thoughts?
So, all in all, a lot of people get really stuck on the numbers and the data and the pay ranges and all this. And for those who have been following us, we say all the time, really doing all that research is not the best use of your time. People get really stuck on, I feel like I should be paid this much. I know someone at this company at this position that I'm applying for, and their offer, they got paid this much.
Yes,
But
right.
the thing is, even for if it's the same role at the same company, one of the biggest factors for how much of a comp increase you can get is what are the unique business needs for that role that the company has at the time that you're applying. So, very simple example, let's say you're applying for a role that tends to pay from X to Y, but
Let's just say 500 to a million.
for 500 to a million, sure. Huge range. You're taking the
Yeah.
corporate tactic there. So let's say a company on average pays for this particular role $500 to $1 million in compensation. But let's say this role has been open for unfilled for the last year. They've been trying to fill it. And in fact, at the time that you're applying, in 2 months, they have a huge product launch coming up, and they really, really need to fill someone to help lead this project. They have a very urgent headcount shortfall on that. So there's a very good chance in those 2 months, the company, if they find the right candidate, hopefully you, that they may be more willing to pay more than the 500 to $1 million range during those 2 months. So we will often hear people, we will often have people tell us, I know how much this role should be paying because my friend also works
Yeah.
there and they got paid this. But honestly, it's a very unreliable data
Yeah.
point on how much someone else is getting paid. You don't know what the unique circumstances were. You don't
Right.
know if they negotiated really, really well, and that shouldn't necessarily be your benchmark.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes into it. Like, was the hiring environment so much better than it is right now? When did they get hired? What role? How desperate they were for that, and how desperate is your team? Also, budget allocation. Budgets change year over year, so maybe they had their team had more budget than this team has. There's so much that goes.
Yeah, another specifically for startups too, those that are fundraising. So if you're applying for a role before a fundraise is coming up versus if you apply for a role right after a fundraise, who knows if leading up to that fundraise, the founders are, it's very important for them to show their investors that their team is growing, right? So perhaps when you're applying before a fundraise, there's a chance that you can negotiate more. But after a fundraise, they've gotten a ton of money. Maybe the fact that they've gotten a lot of money.
No,
All this to say that there's so many variables that you can't generalize exactly how a negotiation should go just based off the data, based off your friends, your years of experience.
Yeah.
Just know that you're going into everything, into every negotiation, and there are opportunities to increase the comp, but it really depends on all the variables that are attributable to you at that time.
Yeah. Nailed it. I've noticed we're very good at adding important information right after we say any final thoughts, and then we squeeze in a lot of good thoughts.
Yeah,
So
we should start off every episode with every final
any
thought.
final thoughts.
I feel like that could be a good podcast name if we start another podcast in addition to Gentle Power.
'Cause
Like
with
any
this
final
one,
thoughts?
so little work. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
All right,
See you next
see you
week.
on the next episode.
Bye.